Starting Tech News Weekly in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tech News Weekly. I am John Bob, also known as Suncast. What? What? I don't know.
I'm also John. I'm here.
You're also John?
Return.
Oh God, what are we gonna do? There's two Johns. I don't know what to do.
I return. Are you prepared?
So you've been on here a few times. Everybody knows John Prosser by now. What's your Twitter handle and what do you do? What's important about you that people should know?
What's important about me? Well, you can find me on Twitter at John_Prosser. You got to put the underscore there. Or at Front Page Tech, which is my tech news show that goes on YouTube every day. It's fun. We make fun of companies when we shouldn't and we get in trouble. But you also get the tech news too, so it's win-win.
Wait, you get in trouble?
I mean, there's a few times where we get ourselves in trouble because we make fun of companies and we probably shouldn't, but we do anyway because that's the nature
internet.
Of the
show. They got to be ready for this stuff by now.
I mean, yeah, you have to expect it by now, but they don't. They don't like it either way.
So Andrew Zarin is not here with us again today. He's actually flying back from California. As we speak, he's actually in the air on JetBlue. I can tell you the flight if you want to watch it. I'm actually going to go look.
Just watch
JetBlue flight 224. If anybody is interested.
And then just meet him at the airport.
Yes. He's flying into JFK,
is this
I believe.
Cup oddly tiny? I feel like this cup is tiny.
Is the cup tiny or are you big?
No, this is a tiny cup. And I'm just now realizing how weirdly tiny it is. Anyway, that won't help the audio listeners, but I'm holding a tiny cup.
Is it a teacup?
It's a cup in all lowercase letters because it's tiny. It's like a half cup.
Okay. So obviously this week we're going to talk a lot about Google I/O because they just had that yesterday and maybe a couple of other things. And you pretty much watched the whole event yesterday, didn't you?
Was it yesterday or the day before?
I thought it was yesterday. Or was it Wednesday?
It was Wednesday.
At this point...
Yeah, it was Wednesday, but yeah, I did watch the whole event. Lucky me.
So what did you think about the event overall? This was an unusual event because they actually did this whole presentation outside.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that was weird in and of itself.
It was kind of weird. Like, as they were talking, like, you could hear the wind blowing in their mics, and, like, the birds were crapping on everyone outside. So, it was interesting. But it was, like, 2 hours long. I guess I can't say, like, I was disappointed by the event, but, like, it's just so long. But, to be fair, there's a lot of Google going on. And, like... There's not like multiple Google events throughout the year. Usually, this is like, the one big developers conference. And my God, it was just so long. It was so long, but it wasn't like it wasn't bad.
To something like an Apple event where they have maybe 2 or 3 things that they're genuinely announcing.
Right.
And they already have multiple announcements per year. This does not seem long. It seems like 2 hours was a decent amount of time for what they did announce.
Oh, yeah, there was a ton of stuff. They Googled it up.
So let's talk about some of that stuff. First up, let's talk about Google Home. And this is basically Google's answer to the Amazon Echo, the nice voice assistant, Bluetooth connected speaker and all that stuff. I actually watched your video back, and you made an interesting comment that I'm kind of steal here. Is that you were saying that this speaker, kind of looks like an air freshener, and I looked at that and I'm like, you know what? That is so true. If you've ever seen one of those commercials on TV for an air freshener, I think it was like Airwick or whatever. It looks just like one of those things,
like one of those little things you sit down and just puff stuff out, or one of those things, the ones that twist up. You know what I mean?
I'm looking at this. I'm like, it does look like an air freshener.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, this device is going to be the competitor to Amazon's Echo. It offers Google Cast support, so you can group it with other speakers in your multi-room audio, or start playing videos on your television with Chromecast. It's also voice-controlled tasks. You can tell Home to play music on another piece of audio gear in another room, as opposed to the whole group or just Home itself. In addition, Google Home will serve as your Internet of Things hub, linking all of your internet-connected devices such as your lights, cameras, thermostats, and small appliances. You can also swap out the base to better match your decor, but the LEDs that provide the visual status update will remain on the bottom of the speaker. So you also get Google's Assistant, which is Google Now, I guess. I don't know why they're differentiating between Google Now and Google Assistant. But you also get that with this new Google Home thing. Give me your thoughts on this. What do you think?
I think that, I mean, it's not the most impressive thing in the world, but I think it was needed from Google, not because that, like, oh, we need this smart device from Google, but like Amazon is killing it with the Echo right now. And I think it just like, it's nothing new, but I think it makes total sense for them to kind of jump in the market with their own little device, and I'm curious to see what happens with it. I mean, it's already pretty good with what it does now with Google Assistant, which is kind of confusing. Like you just mentioned, it's pretty much Google Now, and they were like announcing the Google Assistant when it's like nothing new. It's like an updated Google Now, which I don't know, but. From what Google Home does, it's pretty good. I think it keeps up with the Echo. But it's when they release the API to third-party developers, I think that's when it's really going to get cool for the Google Home.
I think it's great that they're getting into this now. This way that they've got into this market now before most other people have. That way they can secure their spot in the market. Whereas, we've seen in the smartphone market, if you lag behind, such as BlackBerry and Microsoft, you basically end up losing out big time in the market and pretty much aren't able to survive if you're not keeping up. So I think this is a great move for Google to do that in terms of keeping their marketplace and staying a step ahead of everybody else or most people. But I do question this product in the sense that currently, I don't think a lot of people have a lot of smart devices in the sense of a smart home. When you think about a smart home, you're talking about, having everything internet connected, your lights, your thermostat, your front door, other appliances. And I just don't know that a lot of people are there yet where something like this makes more sense. Where if you have a smart home where everything's connected, your lights and whatever have you, a device like this, I think, makes a lot of sense, but on its own, I'm not sure that it makes as much sense without all those other things in your home.
Yeah. I mean, it really takes advantage of casting devices. So, like, stuff that you would use, like, your Chromecast for, or your phone. And then, so, like, if you had a Chromecast hooked up to your TV, this would be really cool to interact with it to make things on your TV happen. But like, it's just kind of betting on you having your home kind of like Googled up already with other products from Google in terms of casting. So that's kind of what you need to make this sort of thing work. But I mean, luckily for all of us, like the Chromecast is only like $35. So I think that they're on the right track, and I'm really interested to see what third-party developers do for it.
So we just mentioned a little bit ago about this Google Assistant, something that they've been talking about. They're calling this a more conversational spin on the company's existing voice search capabilities. And in many ways, it's basically the evolution of Google Now. The key with Assistant, unlike Google Now before, is that it starts a two-way natural language conversation to figure out what it is that you're asking or trying to do. For example, one of the things that they talked about was booking movie tickets. This is one of the examples that they gave during the demonstration. They were showing how you can search for movie tickets And then if you really wanted to, you can narrow down those results even further by saying, we'd like to go see a movie with the kids, and it would narrow that down, and then you could actually book the ticket with that.
Right.
What's your take on this new iteration, basically, of Google Now? And do you think it's too confusing that they're calling it Google Assistant instead of continuing on with Google Now? I mean, is Google Now separate from Google Assistant?
Yeah,
because that's what I'm trying. This is what I'm having trouble with. Is they have Google Now, and this seems like the next evolution of it, but they're treating it more or less as two separate things. When in reality, to me, it's all the same thing, and it doesn't need to be separated into two different things. As far as saying, Google Now and Google Assistant, it should be one or the other.
Well, I think that I think they could have continued to call it Google Now and gotten away with it, but at this point, they're separating it. Whereas Google Now is a service that you can use on your phone or an app, and Google Assistant is is integrated with Google Now. I know that's confusing, but that's essentially what's happening. But as for my thoughts on the assistant part of things, I am pretty impressed, at least from what they showed, just in terms of the contextual conversations. All these other assistants are really cool. Siri, for the longest time, has been great, obviously on iOS devices, but even that is really limited comparatively, where it's kind of these really strict, isolated demands. Siri will work, where it's just hey, Siri, do this. And if you need to get her to do something else, it's she's not keeping track of your conversation. It's, hey, Siri, okay, now do this. Whereas the assistant can actually keep track of your conversation and perform tasks based off of the conversation. So you're not always repeating yourself. So Lambo Creeper in chat said, so can you say, okay, Google, play the latest Front Page Tech episode on my living room TV? Yeah, but you could go as far as to say you could talk to the Google Assistant and be like, okay, Google, what is Front Page Tech? My phone just went off. You can say, okay, Google, what is Front Page Tech? Then it'll start telling you what Front Page Tech is, and you can say, okay, play an episode on the TV. That sort of thing. That's how contextual it is and learning it is when it comes to having the conversation with you. And I think it's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. We see this a little bit already on the Apple side with the Apple TV, because I remember them talking about with the Apple TV how you can search for things, but then also narrow it down. So this is kind of a step above even what Apple is doing in terms of what the functionality is of the Apple TV.
Right. I think it's just Google in this market has more power than anyone because they are Google and because they're always learning from how people talk, how people search. So I think Google just has a leg up just in terms of pure knowledge and the data that they're bringing in on a daily basis. So if anyone can pull something like this off, it's definitely Google. And as long as they keep working on this, I don't see how another company could get the leg up, because it's not just that they're doing it better. It's that literally they have an advantage that other companies don't have because they have data that other people don't have.
Yeah. Speaking of that, does that bother you, the collection of data that they're retaining and using?
No.
I mean, this is something that everybody has been worried about with Google, is that they just have this massive trove of data on you. And basically, you are Google's product. You're the main product for Google.
Especially with Google, people always compare Google with Apple, and they're completely separate business models. Where Apple will sell products to you, but with Google, you're right. You, the person, the customer, you are the product at the same time. Google makes a lot of money from ads, and that is because you are the product. They're selling ads to companies because they have you, they have your data. That's what they make money off of. That's just how it works. So, completely different business model. And I can see how people would be upset that they have all this data, but honestly, we're just I think we're at a weird point with that sort of technology where these systems are always learning. These companies are always learning. and to continue to learn and to continue to improve, it actually benefits us that they have information like this and they have all this data. And I just think right now it's kind of weird because things are getting so advanced and people aren't really okay with it. But personally, I am. Like, I don't think the fact that they have my data is going to be used for anything malicious other than maybe a few ads here and there. But to make services like this better, I think I'm all for it.
So you're not worried about Google listening into all the times that you're abusing your cat?
No, no, not worried about it.
I mean, because that's essentially what they're doing is
Google,
listening to everything you're saying at all times throughout the day.
Be like, okay, Google, listen to me abuse my cat. Stop going.
Every time you're looking at porn or watching porn, they know when you're watching porn, John Prosser.
And then I start getting ads for like the type of porn too. And
oh my god, how scary would that be? Dude, that's like seriously scary. Like, I would totally opt out of all this stuff right there if that happened. Like,
incognito mode.
Not saying that I watch porn. I'm just saying if you're gonna go that far as listening to everything I say in order to target ads to me, that's going a little bit too far, I think.
For sure.
So another thing that they announced was Google Allo, which is yet another messaging app from Google. Google took off the veil of their new messaging app. It's not a Hangouts replacement, but rather a standalone app that looks kind of like Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp. But the key difference between Allo and Hangouts is that Allo comes with some machine learning built right in, courtesy of Google's newly announced personal assistant. So this thing is kind of cool. It seems like it's more straightforward than Hangouts, where Hangouts kind of encompasses a lot of things, where Allo is strictly messaging only.
Right. And messaging apps are weird where it's not really the app that makes the app, it's whether or not people are using the app that makes the app.
Unlike Hangouts, you mean?
Right. Yeah, no one uses Hangouts. I like if I'm going to use Allo, I'm only going to use it if other people are using it. Like, if it makes sense, because half the features are only going to work if other people are using Allo. So, like, it's pointless if there aren't a lot of people on board. So, I mean, it's really going to depend. I guess a benefit is that it works with iOS as well, so it's cross-platform. But then you're telling people on the iOS side of things, which they're probably not willing to do, hey, can you just download this other messaging app? It's really cool. I know you like iMessage, and I know you like just using SMS through your iPhone, but this app's really cool. And then they go over there, and then you have access to features. But that's after you've like sold Allo for Google to that user, so then you can message them. Yeah. It just like Facebook Messenger makes total sense because everyone already has a Facebook account. You know, right. It's not you're not really like demanding anything new from people or trying to get them used to anything new, whereas this is just a completely new app and you got to get people to use it. So I think it's cool. I think some of the features are cool-ish, but it's not going to matter if no one else is using it.
Well, Google did make this a little bit easier for people that aren't in the Google ecosphere to use by making it sign up with your phone number. It's completely independent from Google itself. You don't have to have a Google account. You don't have to have a Google Plus account. You don't have to have any of this stuff. You can be on iOS. You could be on Android. And all you need is your phone number to sign up, which is, I think, one of the benefits to something like this. They're taking basically a little page out of WhatsApp and by letting you sign up by just using your phone number.
Right. I mean, they could have said, yeah, you have to sign in with Google Plus. Sorry.
Yeah. So Lambo Creeper in the room says that they need to pull all of these Google social apps all into a Google Plus application. I'm not 100% certain that they need to do this because they kind of already do that with Google Hangouts. And I think Google Hangouts is an extremely confusing application to use. And quite frankly, just doesn't necessarily work that well to begin with. So, in effect, I think what they're doing now is more or less simplifying what they have into applications that will hopefully not have the same issues as Google Hangouts. Whereas,
yeah, I thought that was a really interesting move, and I kind of left it out of my video. That, well, I guess we'll talk about Duo in a second too. Duo and Allo as two separate apps. That like what's going to happen in Hangouts? Like, what's the point of Hangouts then? Like, I understand these apps are specifically mobile only, but that was the idea of Hangouts. Like, all these features in one app for like this ultimate communication app, and no one uses it. So what happens to that? And
I think what makes FaceTime and iMessage and WhatsApp, at least the iOS stuff, so good is that it's automatically there and it's very easy to use. And yes, I don't have an Android phone, but from my experience with the Hangouts application on iOS, it's a very cumbersome, complicated application to actually utilize.
And it's ugly.
And these two new applications look more dead simple to use.
Yeah.
And that's what it comes down to for me, is that they're making this more dead simple to use by actually creating separate applications. And they're also creating these separate applications in the sense where you can use it both on Android and iOS, which I think is going to be a big plus. You kind of have to do that. You can't just make it Android now. You have to make it Android and iOS, unless they can integrate it natively into Android, but by also making these separate applications, they can also make it so that it works with iOS. And that's just something that Google has always been a big part of, is capturing users on iOS. They've done that for years with Google Maps. Long before Apple Maps came along, Google Maps was the de facto thing. And still, even now, I think Google Maps is a major player on iOS. Oh,
for sure. Like, again, that's just a difference in business model. You know, like, Google does not care how you get Google, but it wants you to get Google. You need to be on Google services somehow. It doesn't matter what phone you use. It doesn't matter what platform you're on. Google makes money from you using Google. So they need to get Google services to the most people possible, and that's obviously going cross-platform.
I'm typing in chat room, so...
What was that?
I'm typing in chat room, that's why I'm a little quiet. So we briefly talked about Google Duo, which is basically their video companion application to Allo. It is a companion, but it also has this new feature that you touched on called Knock Knock. This feature basically lets you see video of the person calling before you answer, and you said you didn't like this feature whatsoever.
I think it's just because I'm not used to it, you know, because it's not a feature in anything else. Like, when I'm calling someone, I'm like prepping. I'm not actually making weird faces and stuff, but like, I don't know. I'm just like, I don't think I'm on camera until they actually answer. And that's like my prep time while I'm waiting for them to answer. So it's like weird, like, and they completely ignore the fact where, so basically Knock Knock, it will show you a preview of the person as they're calling you. So I'm calling John Bub, and before you even answer, you already see me. You see a preview of what I'm doing.
Level calls it pedo mode.
Right. And like, you can see what I'm doing or where I'm at before you answer. And the demo they showed was really cool.
Need that.
They showed this really cool demo, you know, where it's like, it's so useful, and these people are showing you what they're about to do, why they're calling you, where they're at, but they completely like ignored the fact that maybe you don't have your phone on you right then, and maybe you're not looking at it when people think you're looking at it, and you're just sitting there wasting your time showing them nothing. Like, no one's looking at you, and maybe they won't even answer the call at all.
Yes.
So who knows? Like, you might just be wasting your time.
Schmuck.
Like, I don't know. It's cool, but I'm not a huge fan of it.
No, I'm with you on this. It's kind of creepy, and I'm not sure that there's really that big of a point to it. Do people really care about a feature like this? It's neat and everything, but I just don't see the need for something like this. I mean, people call people all the time.
Right.
You don't have audio of them calling instead of a ringtone.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, instead of the
It's
phone
not
ringing,
a
it's just
collect
the person
call.
going, ah!
Yeah.
Like, I know why they did it. It's because no one else has done it. But still, it's just
Nobody
it's a
has
throw
done it
in
because
picture.
it's not needed.
Right. Yeah, it's just not needed.
So I want to touch on at least one other thing here. Google Daydream. So Daydream is Google's follow-up to Cardboard, but instead of being Cardboard, it's a hardware device. And it also is software in the sense that Android N will also have software built into it, such as their VR mode, which puts the device into a mode where images are processed faster, which benefits a VR experience. They haven't really said much about the device other than it doesn't launch until the fall, but a developer preview will be available soon. Did you read much about this product?
Well, so what this is essentially they're not going to push a Daydream like device out there. They're just setting a standard, basically. And they like showed off a controller and all this sort of thing. But like the main point is Daydream is going to be VR like baked into Android. So there's going to be a VR platform baked into Android, and moving forward, manufacturers are going to be able to take advantage of it. Like the best way to explain it is this. Like, okay, you have Samsung phones, right? The Galaxy line.
Yes.
For a while, they've been selling it with Gear VR headsets,
Yes.
So that's cool, but that's like an app on Samsung phones that you can use with the device that's specific to Samsung. This is essentially getting rid of the need of that and putting it in native to the OS. So instead of like a manufacturer doing it themselves and creating an app and the hardware and stuff, it's going to be legitimately baked into Android so any manufacturer can take advantage of it. And that's what Daydream is.
I think this is a great idea because, one of the biggest challenges with virtual reality is the lag time as far as what you're seeing on screen. And that's what really ruins or makes a success out of virtual reality is how real that experience is. And if you're experiencing a lag from receiving images, and I guess from what I understand is that normally in Android, they had to rewrite this whole thing. Normally in Android, what happens now is that there are two buffers when it renders or displays an image. So that, as it renders one image, it swaps out the buffer for the next image. And this actually creates lag. It's great for a user experience when you're just browsing your phone. But as far as a virtual reality experience, that lag that this double buffer creates actually is not conducive to a great virtual reality experience. So this VR mode, what it does is tricks it into just being a single buffer mode, where images are now drawn in just a single buffer and replaced as needed, instead of it being buffered into a second buffer, which makes it a much faster, smoother experience for virtual reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is going to be, I think, a game changer, to be honest. I think this right here is a game changer in terms of virtual reality.
Oh yeah, Google natively baking it into Android is a huge step. Like putting it natively in the OS is a pretty big move.
Yeah, I mean we see some other devices that are in the works. This is something that I think we're still very early as far as virtual reality devices go. Yes, we've seen Cardboard, and I think because of Cardboard, we're getting a lot more interest in this virtual reality world now. That yes, even with HoloLens, we're getting more into it, but because of Cardboard, it's now more in the minds of the masses out there. And we're seeing some new devices that are coming out. One of them I just read about was the new IMAX one. Google is actually making a cinema quality camera for IMAX specifically. And as a result of that partnership, they're also creating specifically an IMAX device, an IMAX headset that you wear, which looks really interesting. I don't know if you've seen this device yet.
No,
And
it sounds awesome though.
Yeah,
And
there's not
funny
a whole
'cause,
lot
like,
IMAX.
for the longest time, you weren't a big fan of like VR, or not necessarily a fan of the thought of VR, but like you weren't crazy about where we were right now. You thought it was kind of gimmicky.
It still is. I mean, the whole cardboard experience where it's just an app on your phone. And I mean, one of the things that really bothers me, and quite honestly, is the quality of images that you see. Where the images, because you're having to do this large virtual dome and everything else, is that these images just come really distorted and really compressed looking. And
Yeah.
to me, that does not create a very good experience. I don't want to stand there looking at this super distorted, fish-eyed, super compressed image. And that's the experience that I have so far of virtual reality. Not saying that there isn't better experiences out there. There probably are, but in terms of masses right now, in terms of what's readily available, such as cardboard, I don't think we're there where images are super crisp, super clean, and just really, really fun to look at. It's creating that experience that you're actually immersed into this, where you're not just sitting there looking at something, that you're looking at all the imperfections.
I think like Google has done a really good job like getting us introduced to it, because you're totally right, especially like early on, like VR was such a big deal, but like these devices are it's such a crazy amount of money for an experience that is just now being figured out. You know what I mean? Like you're paying a lot of money to get introduced
such
to an
as the
experience
HTC Vive.
that isn't right. And I think that Cardboard did something where Google was like, okay, well, see, VR is just kind of now getting started. So you're gonna here's this. Pay a price for what it's actually worth. So you can pay $30 for Google Cardboard and just get your foot in the door, because they know it's not fully there yet. They know it's not a great experience. Here's a cool way to just try it. And something that I'm not a big fan of is them like referencing VR and people throwing around the term VR for things like 360 video. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. Is that those 360 videos that you see, which are basically just a bunch of GoPros cobbled together, look super compressed and fisheyed.
I mean, there are some that are like crazy good. Like there have been some manufacturers that have released 360 cameras, and I mean they're getting crazy good now. Like there's some 4K 360 cameras that look really good, but like the confusion is that they're calling it VR. Well, some like for a consumer to view it, they're calling it a VR experience, and that's just not true, because the camera is stationary. The only option you have is to look around. And the environment is not being generated for you. It is a real environment. Virtual reality is the opposite of that. It is a virtual environment generated around you that you have free range in. The video is not that way.
I completely agree with you on that. I think there's that dichotomy there of those 360-degree videos. Yes, you can do more things. We were talking about this a little bit on Podcast Without Pretense earlier this week, where you can create, more interactive experiences with 360-degree videos, but that's just something that's extremely difficult to do, and you have to have the right cameras to film something like that, and you have to create these interactive moments, which is very difficult to do. But whereas you have the advantage of it's all, basically CGI, you can create whatever you want.
Yep.
So was there anything else with this Google I/O keynote that you wanted to talk about, that you saw was, kind of interesting, didn't quite touch on?
Instant apps. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw this. This was basically they load parts of applications, streaming it.
Without actually installing it. So, okay, for example, let's say... okay, I text you assuming you have an Android device, which you don't. Let's say I text you a YouTube link. Instead of opening the YouTube link in your web browser, what it will do is, if you don't have the YouTube app installed, obviously if you have the YouTube app installed, it's just going to open the YouTube app. But even if you don't have it installed, what it will do is immediately communicate with Google Play and grab pieces of the app, just enough pieces to make it work for that short amount of time. So when you actually tap the link that I texted you, it will open the YouTube video in the YouTube app, even though you don't have it installed. Obviously, it's a temporary thing. It's just grabbing the pieces from Google Play that it needs to make that work, that action work right then and there. But that's still really, really cool. They also demoed it with like a parking meter app, which was really cool. Like, obviously, unless you're around those parking meters for a long time or often in your life, you're not going to download a parking meter application. And if you need it right then and there, it's gonna be time consuming to go to Google Play and download the app and wait for it to download and then wait for it to install and then use it to finally pay the parking meter. This was literally just like they scanned it, reached to Google Play, and it grabbed the pieces that you need, and you were able to use the parking meter app temporarily without installing it to make a successful payment. And that was super, super awesome.
This sounds like a pretty cool feature, and I think this is something they were testing a while ago. I think last year they said that they were working on technology like this, but it was really only in like an alpha stage where they were just trying things out and rolling it out to certain groups of people to test with. And now they're rolling it out more to the masses, where they've got the technology down now. All people have to do is add this little bit of code to their application, and they can have a streamable application now.
Right. I think
it's pretty cool.
It's super cool.
So let's talk about Nokia and Microsoft, because this is some pretty interesting news that came out this week, and something that I think you did a good job of researching and trying to figure out exactly what was going on. The Nokia brand will return to the smartphone market. Microsoft just announced that it's offloading Nokia's old feature phone business to Foxconn subsidiary and a Finnish company called HMD Global OY. I'm not sure if you pronounce that or you just say it. But basically, Nokia has revealed that HMD is also acquiring the relevant rights to use the Nokia name on smartphones and tablets for the next 10 years. Basically, what we're going to see is Nokia branded phones and tablets that are running Android.
Right.
So can you tell me more about this company that bought the rights for Nokia?
Well, that's the interesting thing. So Microsoft sold the company to Foxconn subsidiary. I forget what it's called, but the subsidiary then was given the rights to the Nokia name. Nokia made a new company.
FIH Mobile is what you're talking about, I think.
That's the subsidiary of Foxconn, yes. You're right.
Yes.
And then Nokia has made a new company called HMD Global, who is going to make Android devices with the Nokia name on it. So Microsoft sold this feature phone business for $350 million to, what would you say, FIH?
Yeah.
They sold it to them.
Mobile.
Gave them exclusive rights to Nokia and used the branding, and then Nokia then turned around and, for whatever reason, created HMD Global, and now they're going to sell Android devices, which it seems like a BlackBerry move to me, but I mean, it makes total sense at this point. You know, the Nokia phones were never bad; they were just running the Windows platform, so.
So Lambo Creeper in the room asks, so Microsoft, who owned Nokia, are allowing a company to make Nokia Android devices rather than Windows.
Yep. That's it. I think
this is kind of exciting, though, the fact that we're going to start seeing Nokia hardware again. Because Nokia hardware was actually really beautiful and really well done compared to a lot of other companies out there, such as maybe HTC. And I think a lot of people are excited to see what happens. This is something that everybody wanted to see done to begin with. Is Nokia and Android?
Yeah.
This is basically just what everybody wants done. Period. Is you take a failing brand that makes something good and put it with Android. We've seen this kind of done with BlackBerry now, and now we're going to see this with Nokia.
Right. And it's literally just like to think about the steps that Nokia has been through. It's crazy to think that literally at this point it's just a name. You know what I mean? It's not the same company that was successful years ago. They've kind of been torn down like layer by layer to the point where now it's just literally like this other company that was kind of just created for this purpose is literally just going to use the Nokia name. So I'm curious to see like if it looks like Lumia's. You know what I mean? Like if it still looks like a Nokia device, or if it's something completely different.
They would be smart if they did.
Oh, for sure, yeah. And like even like people wanted this for so long. These phones running Android, a lot of the reasons was because the camera was so good. So it'd be interesting to see if they continue that, because that's kind of what that's like the only thing that these Nokia Windows phones were known for towards the end was the ridiculous cameras on them.
Yeah. So when do you think we'll actually start seeing these devices, and do you think they will be successful?
Probably like a year from now. And I don't think it's going to be crazy successful. I don't think it's going to be like this crazy move that revives the brand. But I think there's enough interest in it where people will totally buy them. I mean, I think more people will buy them than before when they were just running Windows. So if they sold when they ran Windows Phone, I don't see why they wouldn't sell if they ran Android. I hope that like it's not just. I hope they're not just banking on the fact that it's going to run Android to sell the device. I hope they give us something cool, and the hardware's cool, and they give us cool features, and it's not just, look, Nokia and Android, ta-da, we did it, here you go, hopefully you buy it. I want them to actually try.
So here's a wild question. Do you think this lends any hope to BlackBerry?
No.
I knew that was going to happen.
No.
So another story here that we wanted to talk about was Twitter not counting links and photos in the 140 character limit. When Twitter started, it was basically started so long ago that most people were still using text messaging, which has a 160 character limit, which is why Twitter initially went with a 140 character limit. Right. Nowadays, everybody has a smartphone. Everybody has a data plan. There's really no need to do text messaging anymore. If you do, it's just text messaging. It's something that is ubiquitous these days. You don't need to have this artificial 140 character limit anymore. And a lot of people have been screaming for the past couple of years for Twitter to do something with this character limit. Either not count links, not count photo links, not count hashtags or usernames in tweets. And now they're finally doing something about this by not counting links and photos in 140 character limit. Do you think awesome. Twitter needs to keep going?
Keep going as in...
Do they need to go further with exempting also the hashtags and usernames?
Well, I think so. The reason why photos and links were easy is because no matter how long the link is, Twitter shortened it automatically to a Twitter short link. So no matter how long the link was that you posted, it did not count all those characters. It counted 24 characters from a Twitter short link, and the same goes for a picture because obviously that's also a Twitter link. So that's controlled. And they were able to just exempt it. I want them to exempt hashtags, but then you could literally just make a long ass hashtag. You know what I mean? You could just keep going with the hashtag, and it could get annoying. Yeah. And but I think
that wouldn't be the case with the username.
Like usernames should definitely be exempt because I mean, there's already a character limit for usernames. It's a 15 character limit,
right?
So people can't make that annoying. So as long as you have a character limit on what people can make their usernames, I think it's totally viable to make it exempt in your tweet. So something you reminded me of. You said it's 140 characters because of the text messaging limit, and that was the way people use Twitter. And I mean, it still has that tied in. If you have your phone number tied to your Twitter account for verification purposes or whatever, you can text. I forget the number. It's like 44 something. I don't know what the number is, and tweet from just by texting that number, which is funny because like even if someone's phone is locked, you could tweet from their phone. And just like when you said that, it reminded me of that issue. Because like you could literally, even if their phone is locked and you can't get in their phone, you could say something like, "Hey Siri," and then Siri answers, and you say, "Text I like ass to this number." And if their Twitter account was linked, it would tweet for them, and people could you could just make that person tweet anything by texting that number, which was a cool, like, funny little quirk. But I mean, you could still do it as long as the person's number is tied to Twitter, which most of the time it is because of verification purposes, because Twitter asks you to do that now when you sign up. So I mean, try it sometime. Maybe you can have some fun, even if the person's phone is locked.
Yeah. Does it work with Google?
Well, it won't work with me because I have I have Google Now locked. So unless my phone,
so I shouldn't try it now.
Right, Google won't do anything. she'll be like, okay, I'll do that, but you have to unlock me first. So, and I don't have a link to my phone number. I don't think, which is probably a mistake.
You don't have two-factor?
No.
Oh, so I can
shouldn't
break
have said
in.
that on the air. I regret this decision.
Well, now.
Oh God, here we go.
Especially around me.
Yep, especially around you.
Well, that's going to do it for the news. I think we pretty much covered everything. Was there anything else you wanted to mention before we go?
Nope, that's it. I think we did it.
All right. Well, where can people find you and what you do?
At Front Page Tech on Twitter, and frontpagetech.net is a good place, or youtube.com/frontpagetech.
Awesome. You can follow me on Twitter at Suncast. That's SUNKASD. It's a K, not a C. I know it's weird, but whatever. That's the way I do it. You can also follow GFQ Network on Twitter at GFQ Network. Check out our website, gfqnetwork.com. Make sure you subscribe and follow to our iTunes feed. If you're on Google Play Music now, you can do that as well. We have links on our website for everything. And also, if you want, you can support us a little bit on Amazon. We go to gfq.co/Amazon. That'll add a little affiliate link that'll get you cash into your browser for like 24 hours. And then if you make any sort of purchases, we'll get a little bit of kickback from Amazon whenever you purchase something, which is great for us because, we buy a whole bunch of stuff for the studio on Amazon. If I need a new C920, a new microphone, or a new cable or something like that, basically, that's how we fund stuff like that. So again, gfq.co. Yes. gfq.co/Amazon. And that's it. Take care, everybody.